this podcast, I'm with Freddie Forsythe, and we are going to share the secrets of spy writing. Freddie, thank you for joining me to talk a little bit about your career as a novelist, because of course you started off as a journalist, but I mean, how did you then translate into becoming a novelist?
Well, that was like so many things that happened in my life, actually accidental. I didn't intend at the outset to become a journalist. I wanted to travel the world. I didn't intend to become a novelist. I had just got back in the winter of 1969 from a vicious war in Africa, the war between Nigeria and Biafra. I'd been on, as usual, of course, bound to be, wouldn't I, on the losing side of Biafra. So I got out just the skin of time, nick of time. I got back, broke, just Christmas 1969, and thought, what do I do now? I can't work. I've got no job in Fleet Street anymore. I'd been a freelance. I'd been well blackened, my reputation well smeared by the Foreign Office as being on the wrong side, the Biafran side. How do I make a living? And I thought, I'll write a novel. Now, this is the stupidest way of trying to make a living, to say I'll write a novel. There aren't, thousands of aspirant novel writers, and very few make it. But I didn't know this, and hope springs eternal, so I thought, I've got a story. Actually, 7 years ago in Paris, I covered the 6 attempts, or most of the 6 attempts, to assassinate Charles de Gaulle. Let's go back to those days and invent a 7th, with a different assassin, a lone sniper rifle-toting killer for hire. And so the day of the Jackal duly came. I didn't do much research because I knew my Paris intimately. I knew those days intimately. I knew all the characters who appear in the book pretty much intimately. Some of them are named by their real names. Others are thinly drawn on real characters whom I knew. So I sat at a friend's kitchen table. I was sleeping on their sofa. I hadn't got a flat of my own at the time. And I wrote to the day of the Jackal. And I called it at first the Jackal. And then I thought, that's a bit bare sounding, so I finished the last page and I typed the wonderful words, the end, under them. Then I went back to the first page and rolled it back into my typewriter. I still, odd enough, use a typewriter. I haven't gone electronic yet. And I typed the words the day of in front. And it's never changed. It's never changed. It's never been rewritten. It's never been edited. It's exactly the same typescript as I typed back then. If you buy a copy today, that's it. I'm not a good rewriter. I usually, perhaps it's the journalistic experience, but the first copy has got to be the best. Because the editor, you can't ring the editor at 3 a.m. and say, I want that copy back. I want to rewrite it. I want to do it better. The answer is no, it's in the paper already. So that's what I wrote. I hawked it around the West End, and at my 5th attempt, found a publisher to publish it, Hutchinson's. And to my and indeed the editor's amazement, it took off like a rocket from Cape Canaveral, and it just became a sort of icon of how on earth, with enough luck, a first-time novelist can actually make it. And then he wanted more, of course. He wanted the second and the third, so I did Odessa, the Dogs of War, and then on and on and on.
Yes, I was going to say you actually written now, I believe it's 17 novels.
Yeah.
And I understand there's quite a lot of research that goes into your novels, not just from, you might be drawing as you did with The Day of the Jackal from your own knowledge, but as you progressed, wasn't there a fair amount of research?
There was indeed. You see, and I didn't have it all to hand. I did with The Day of the Jackal, I got most of it in my head. But having set a template with the Jackal for getting the facts right, I then felt obliged to continue in that vein. So Odessa File did a lot of research in Germany about ex-Nazis, the resurgent Nazis of East Germany at the time, 1970, and then the Dogs of War, which again I knew something about them, the mercenaries of Africa, because I'd been with them down in Biafra. There were mercenaries in Biafra. So these 2 stories sprang partly out of personal knowledge, but also involving a lot of research. And then as I got more and more into subjects I hadn't personally been involved in, more and more research, but the obsession to get the facts right just stayed and became part burden, part obsession. I was expected
Yes.
to get the facts right. So everything had to be checked out. That's why if ever I mention a city in any book, I've probably been there deliberately to get it right.
We always think of novels, of course, being fiction, but you get the sense with your novels that there's a fine line between fact and fiction. Is that how you see your writing?
Possibly is, but then it's also been a conviction that we live in such weird, bizarre, or I have lived in such weird, bizarre times that in many cases you didn't need to invent an awful lot because the truth was strange. I mean, who could have written the Kennedy assassination, for example? You know?
Yeah.
Who could have written for half the things that have happened and not been disbelieved? People say, no, it couldn't have happened, but it did, you see. So when you've got near real events and you want to turn them into fictionalise them, you don't have necessarily very far to move. Just take what really happened and embellish it. So that's what I've done quite a few occasions. I mean, things like Cobra, which is the attempt to destroy the crime world behind cocaine. That's based on, to a large degree, on what they really do.
So presumably you have to protect your sources, do you?
Yeah,
During your the historical side of the research.
yeah.
And were the points at which it became quite dangerous for you to be researching particular areas?
Well, there were certain situations I had to go into. I felt I had, when I was doing the kill list, I had to go to Mogadishu, capital of Somalia and a war zone. I just read some stuff about Somalia. It wasn't convincing, and it certainly was not read by people who'd been there. So I thought, no, I can't just put this out as supposedly Mogadishu. It's got to be Mogadishu. So I went to Mogadishu. The only time I ever went in with a bodyguard. Worth it because he was an ex-Special Forces boy. Good man. Had something metal under his left armpit. I didn't inquire too much. But he would have used it if he had to. We didn't have to use it. But there are other places like, a hellhole, like Guinea-Bissau, where the Colombian cocaine barons have their depots and passing on stations in Guinea-Bissau, which is a totally lawless West African hellhole. I went into quite a few of these. So there's an element of hazard, but I mean, not offensively so.
What do you think is your personal favourite novel that you've written? Do you have a favourite?
I've been asked several times. Yes, I think, well, apart from The Jackal, which gave me my break, obviously, I think it's probably The Fist of God, which was set in the Middle East, and it was the story of a vast supergun called the Babylon gun, which was built. Originally, there was nothing fictional about the Babylon gun. It was designed to be able to throw a missile about 100 miles beyond the range of any weapon. And it was one that Saddam Hussein wanted badly to have in order to shell Israel. So I went into the whole business of that Iran-Iraq war and all that very deeply. But then came the Iraq War when he invaded Kuwait, we invaded him, and the war was probably the first war ever actually fought virtually on TV. Every evening a briefing from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, all these beautifully pressed generals in their combat kits which they never soiled, giving us briefings, this was happening, that was happening, the other was happening. I thought this is all too perfect. At the end, I waited for the credits. I thought, where are the job titles? But there were so many things that I was sure from my research had happened and had been covered up to present this perfect picture of the West winning a lovely localized war and hurting nobody, which is rubbish, of course. A lot of people died. And then 3 years later, there was a documentary, and I sat there saying, yes! One after another, things I'd been told didn't happen, couldn't happen, were confirmed. They did. Like, did we have an agent right in the heart of the court of Saddam Hussein? Yes, we did. We knew too much. We knew what he had buried deep underground. And we bombed it to destruction. But how do we know it was there? So, various other things, I think, that gave me no satisfaction. To go out on a limb and be proved right.
In your autobiography, you actually admit that you worked for a very short time for MI6.
Yeah.
You want to comment on it, on that part of your life? Or are you not allowed to talk about it?
I was told at the time, okay, Freddie, we'll forgive you this, but no more, thank you very much.
Okay.
I have to be very circumspect about it.
Of course.
But others have written their memoirs who are much higher than I ever was. It's over. It's all over now. East Germany's over. The Stasi are over. Communism not over, but certainly the USSR is over. It's coming back under Putin. So I would say yes. Yes, one day I was similarly approached and asked to do a favour, run an errand. So I thought, well, this country's given me an awful lot. Maybe I owe a bit back. So, okay, what do you want me to do? Well, let's go into East Germany again. All right, I did. Came back.
Finally, can I ask you, do you enjoy a good spy novel?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a favourite?
Was
that not fair?
I'm not going to name favourites. It was suffice to say that I don't read many novels, oddly enough. I prefer non-fiction, because I like to learn things. But when I do read, it's probably a police thriller or a spy thriller. Not really into romance, not into children, not into fantasy. Star Wars or stuff like that doesn't turn me on. But a good spy novel, yeah. They're still coming out. I've got a must-read list by my desk, about a foot high. 6 or 7 novels, all that. And they're still coming out.
Freddie Forsythe, thank you so much for sharing the secrets of writing spy fiction.
Okay.
Thank you.
This has been a production for the National Centre for Military Intelligence. To find out more and to support the NCMI, please visit ncmi.co.uk.